survive, evade, resist, and escape. SERE. It's all the rage these days, and for good reason, because Americans are waking up to the fact that they're gonna have to take care of themselves in the hard times that are coming. No one's coming to save you. And it's also one of the most specialized roles in the military to be a SERE instructor. So we sat down with one of our best friends, Mitch Wiuff, who was a SERE instructor in the military. And well, Josh, what did we talk to him about?
Well, we covered a lot about where he came from, what his background is, ultimately how he got to be the cameraman, the first cameraman for the Garand Thumb, and what he's doing with his life these days. Some of his regrets that he has about being in the military, and some stories that we didn't expect ourselves. So we hope you guys enjoy this one. It's a great podcast with one of our good friends, Mitch Wiuff.
Mitch?
Yeah.
Wiuff. Is that how you say it?
Close enough.
How do you say it?
Wiuff.
Wiuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so most people don't know this about you, but you were Garand Thumb's original cameraman.
The longest first term cameraman, yes. Before he was like doing it in his basement.
Oh.
So, like,
was it his mom's basement?
Well, I mean, it was the government's basement, but pretty much, you know, it's the same thing.
Nice.
But yeah, when he actually had an established shooting range, I was his first actual consistent cameraman.
Got you. Why did he choose you?
I was the only other guy in our shop that actually shot guns.
Okay. All right.
So there was that. And it was one of the things inside of our office where they're like, hey, Mike, I bet you Sergeant Wiuff over there could outshoot you. And they just said it all the time. So eventually he had to bring me out to go shooting on the range, and I outshot him. And then he asked me to run a camera for him.
Okay.
Nice.
All right. Yeah. So so do you have any tidbits? Do you have any interesting stories just to kick this off that most people don't know about Mike Jones, the Garand Thumb?
Ooh. There was a time where him and a bunch of other guys in our shop were trying to get shredded. Like they were trying to cut weight after like bulking up and everything else like that. And their concept was, we're going to just eat tuna packets as our meals when we're in the field.
Okay.
When we're doing like actual
No
SV80.
carbs, no carbs or anything.
Carbs. Like, well, that's what Mike heard was no carbs. So he's just eating straight tuna packets for a week and a half.
Oh my God.
Nothing else but water and tuna packets. Everybody else had like tortillas and like little things that they would put on it. And he got so mad. He was like protein raging the entire time. He's like, "Can I take tortillas whole time?" It was absolutely fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
But yeah, that and
Wait, you guys got tortillas?
yeah, he was pissed off about it. It was like Dumb and Dumber.
You had two pairs of gloves this whole time?
It's the Rockies.
Yeah.
Same thing, but
Nice.
yeah, it was tortillas for him.
Wow. I'm going to
That's
send him a
nuts.
pack of tortillas. Actually, I'm going to send it with you because you're going up to film with him next week.
I'm flying up there on Sunday.
Oh yeah, that's right. You're leaving. What time are you leaving? Actually, you can't say for
It's in
per
there.
sec. Yeah, we can't say for per sec. So you're going up there. You're filming some videos with him.
Yep.
I'm going to send a tortilla pack with you.
Do it.
Okay.
I'll just hand it to him. He'll probably get it.
Yeah. If he doesn't, just say it's from Drew and me combined. And
We
see how
thought
long-
you could use some carbs with how much you've been going to the gym.
Don't tell him I was involved at all. I don't want to be in any bit of this.
He would be like, Josh, who?
Yeah, agreed.
I'm joking. Cool. So why don't you tell us a little bit? I know a little bit of your backstory. What's you're a SERE guy.
Yes.
You're a SERE guy. Why don't you kind of give us a little bit of like your background and like who you are, what you've done, that kind of stuff.
So I wasn't always a SERE guy. I mean, weird how people have lives before the military and all that.
And after.
And after.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, like insane. People change. They have changes inside of their lives and everything else like that. But like early on, I got into doing like mountaineering and stuff like that from my dad. So my dad used to be a mountaineering guide in the Canadian Rockies back when he was in his 20s and 30s, and was one of the guys that would like discover some of these elaborate mountaineering hikes in the Canadian Rockies. That's what he used to do. And then he would take guys out for trips and guide and all that sort of stuff. He was also a pastor and all that sort of stuff. But I got into hiking and mountaineering and stuff like that from my dad, because he would always take us out camping, going to the Rockies and all that sort of stuff. But my first job in the military was actually as a weapons systems specialist. So I signed on back in 2010 to work on the guns, launchers, rails, and all that sort of stuff to load bombs and missiles and bullets onto F-16s.
What branch?
Air Force.
Air Force?
Yep.
Okay, yep. Just clarifying.
Yeah. You know, in case somebody wanted to know. And just
Sure.
fact check this motherfucker. You know? Whatever. So I originally signed on for that contract with the full intention of, hey, I want to be doing SERE. It just wasn't in the cards for me at the time, and I had student loans to pay.
So you knew ahead of time that SERE was a thing?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
100%.
Because there's a lot of people who have only discovered the term SERE in the past year, but you knew before that.
Yeah, I was fortunate to have a recruiter that didn't lie to me. And he said, look, if you're going to join the Air Force, you're going to do it on your own. If you want information, I'll give it to you, but I'm not going to force you to sign shit. I'm not going to tell you the world is your oyster and you do whatever that you want with it, man. You want this, you're going to take it. I was like, I respect that. Yeah. So he told me about all the different jobs and everything else like that. He kind of heard some of my background, and he was like, probably be a good fit for this. But I had student loans to pay, and the next contract that I could sign up for SERE was way further down the line because they didn't have an opening yet. So I took the first job that I knew I was going to do really well at, that I was going to have a lot of fun and go a lot of places, which was the weapons systems world. So.
Gotcha. So you had student loans. What did you go to college for?
I was originally a history major.
Oh, same.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of a joke.
It is. It's a real joke. Like, it's its own, like, the term that I've adopted now from my previous career is it's a self-licking ice cream cone.
Oh, yeah. That's actually quite accurate.
Right?
I always think of the scene in Good Will Hunting when he's like, oh, you spent, $200,000 to get an education you could have got for 10 cents at a library.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about history major courses. Now, I had a lot of really good professors. Like, I got a lot from them, from getting to know them. Like, one of my professors was, he was Russian, and he was alive during part of towards the end of the Russian Revolution. Oh, wow. And so he had a lot of, the personal stories that I learned from some of the professors within, academia was awesome. But the curriculum, yeah. So you're a history major. Mm-hmm. Did you graduate?
No. Dude, it was that time in my life. I was working as a grocery store maintenance guy and a stagehand for a local concert venue at the same time. And it got to a point where I got laid off from both my jobs because it was really bad in the season. There wasn't a whole lot of work going around, especially for the concert venues during that time. They had to cancel a lot of shows that year. And they're like, look, you've been here for a couple of years, but we can't keep you. We need to let you go just because there's not enough shows for you to work. And then for the grocery store one, it just didn't fit anymore. So I couldn't do that one. And then I couldn't afford tuition anymore. So I couldn't continue to go to school. And then student loans were coming up, and they were knocking on my dad's door going like, hey, you owe us money because you co-signed with your son for this. And he was like, you got to do something. I was like, oh, shit. And then I had a really good friend also who happened to be named Mike, completely different Mike. He was like, you should look at the Air Force, man.
So you hadn't necessarily considered it previously?
No,
it just
not even remotely.
Your life put you in that spot?
Yep.
Okay.
And you're Canadian. That's one thing a lot of
Allegedly.
Okay, allegedly Canadian. Okay.
I was born in Canada. My dad is a born American citizen.
Gotcha.
So I'm considered an American born abroad.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. How long did you live in Canada?
Up till the second grade.
Okay. What brought you all back to America?
My dad's work. So he was a pastor and a church planner. So, growing up, we only lived in one place for about 2 years.
Did you enjoy that, or was that hard on growing up?
It was just life.
Okay.
Learn to make friends real fast, learn how to talk to people.
Did you grow up feeling like an American?
I mean...
Even though you were in Canada?
We lived in the Rockies, so nobody really messed with your freedoms at all.
Gotcha.
When you're out there. And they didn't, I never knew what it would be like to be what's going on up there right now, not to get into the political realm of what's happening with all that. But it was never really a concern. I always felt like freedom was inherent. Never even considered the possibility of it not being there. So, I mean, yeah.
That makes sense.
What part of the Rockies? So Colorado, did you guys, you said you guys went like backpacking and camping all the time. Was there something about being outside other than for any kiddo, if their dad takes them out, being outside with your dad growing up is a huge blessing. But was there something specific for you that you felt like, yeah, this is for me?
I just loved running through the woods and making shit. Like that was one of the highlights that I always remember doing. My mom would even say like I would disappear before, when we literally lived sandwiched in between like Rocky Mountain. There's a canyon that we're living in, and our house is like right inside in the middle of it in a small like valley. I would just disappear, and she would call out the back door and like try to figure out where the hell I went. And I would just come running back with like baby bears playing with me and shit like that. And
wow.
Yeah. I'm too young to remember this, but my mom told me about it. So if you guys got a problem with that, I'll talk to my mom. She'll put you straight. But it was one of those things. Like I always liked running around. I always liked making stuff out of just what was naturally there. I even remember like building my own bow and arrows by stealing my mom's yarn and like fashioning a bow and like figuring out, all right, this stick has this nice curve to it. And if I take it while it's green, it actually bends a little bit better. It has more spring to it. Oh, I can skin the tree and then heat treat it and make it stronger and like all this other sort of stuff. And like I ended up as a kid, probably about this age that my son is now, which is also terrifying because he hasn't done any of this stuff yet. And I'm just waiting for that day to happen. But I would make a bow and arrow out of like trash.
Wow.
And it would be able to pierce a 2-liter soda bottle.
That's actually pretty impressive. I couldn't do that now.
No. So was that trial and error, or was that just
it was
reading
just
books,
trial and error and like snapping over 50% of them in half when you try to like pull it and draw and all that sort of stuff, trying to figure out how fletching actually worked and like using duct tape to start with and like a whole bunch of other just random things. You're like, well, I keep seeing these in pictures. How does that work? You can just start doing it.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Did your dad teach you any of these things?
No.
Or you just kind of like, you were given the freedom to just do it? Like if you take like my kids, if I just put them outside, I don't have to give them any toys. I don't have to do anything. I don't even have to be involved.
Yeah.
And they are fully immersed in their surroundings and figuring out how to do just the most random of things.
Yeah. It's great, man.
Yeah. Wow. So that definitely, did you kind of continue this love for like just figuring stuff out and doing stuff outside?
Yeah.
That just continued?
Yeah. I was always like figuring out how things worked. I never had a toy that I didn't take apart. You know, it played off into my first career in the military as a weapons systems guy because I got to take apart all of the missile launchers and the big guns and everything else like that. Like I was one of the certified mechanics down in Tucson for a few years that would be able to go in and handle all the hung gun malfunctions for the A-10. So the GAU-8, which is about the size of half of this room.
Good Lord.
It's a really, really big gun.
Yeah.
I would be the guy that would go to the end of runway with EOD behind us, about like 200 meters behind, and I'm taking it apart like busted up 30 millimeter rounds and pulling them out of the gun. And there's a certain point in there where like if we weren't able to save it, we would have to tell EOD, it's like, you gotta blow it up.
Sheesh, man.
Yeah, I love that job.
It was a
great gun to play with, man. Like the mechanical sides of it, really enjoyed. But it also played into like later on when I became a SERE guy, going through the process that they called improvising things. We always had to make shit that we didn't have. So like one of our first projects was you need to make a rigger's belt for yourself. Here's webbing, here's 550 cord, here's a sail needle, make it.
Really?
Yeah.
And you just had to figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, they would give you like rough guidelines.
Sure.
But like even from like hand sewing and making stuff and all that sort of stuff, it was just one of those things that just came naturally. I liked putting things together. I liked designing it. I liked creating it.
Hey guys, we're going to take a 1-minute time out to talk about some of the companies that make content like this possible and free for you guys. The first one being 100 Concepts. We've been long-time users of their products. They make awesome stuff like scrim covers for helmets and backpacks and anti-reflective devices to make sure that your signature isn't out there like exposing your flashlight or your optic and with like, you know, scope glint and all that stuff in Call of Duty. So you can save 15% off using the link in the description for everything at 100 Concepts. We've also got 2 others.
Yeah, so if you guys are out and about, keep in mind that night vision is not just for tactical things. You can be using this for navigation, survival, generally just seeing in the dark. It also doesn't have to be expensive. Go get yourself a bump helmet, save some money with the discount code that we have in the description. Also, if you guys are doing SERE kind of stuff, you're gonna wanna keep the weather off of you. You're gonna wanna be able to stay alive and feed yourself and your family. For that, I would go check out Sportsman's Guide. Once again, link in the description. Back to the podcast.
Well, it sounds like if someone's able to build something, specifically a piece of safety equipment, if you're able to manufacture it, even just one for yourself, if you're able to produce something on your own, that's another learning process as well. You know, I could take apart an AR-15 because I've done it so many times. Mm-hmm. But man, if you ask me to design something like that on my own or redesign something like that or tooling for it, or even something as simple as, you know, what'd you say, a rigger's belt?
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know all of the details of a rigger's belt enough to even begin to know like, well, what are my details and guidelines? But if you have the experience with it and you know how to manufacture it, that validates and stretches your own mind to like be able to understand the intricacies of how those items work. That sounds like an interesting way to understand the tools that you're working with.
Yeah. And a lot of it's like trying to understand the purpose. What is it supposed to do?
Right.
Mm-hmm. How do you achieve that end goal?
Yeah.
How do you make things that you have available meet that need? And like, it's going to be different everywhere that you are, depending on like the resources that you have available to you and all that. But it's make something from nothing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I kind of want to go back to moving around growing up. Do you play any like organized sports, or what did you do other than going out in the woods and maybe school?
So I played soccer for a little bit, and then I snapped my collarbone playing soccer in, I think, 3rd or 4th grade. So I got put up for that because you can't cast a broken collarbone right now.
I broke a kid's collarbone one time as an adult.
That's crazy.
It was one of the worst feelings ever, man. I say I was an adult. I was like 19, and I went back home to visit my parents, their church, and there's like a pickup game of football going on in the yard outside one night after a youth group. And
so
one
as
of
a
my
19-year-old, you decided to go play pickup football
Well, I
with
just-
a bunch of little kids.
okay, they were like middle schoolers and high schoolers, so I wasn't that much older than some of the high schoolers.
Okay.
And but one of the middle schoolers who was a really good family friend, I tackled him, broke his collarbone. He threw up on the spot, and like everyone in the parking lot as they were leaving church was like giving me the evil eye. It was awful. It was one of the worst feelings ever.
Way to go.
Yeah, and I loved how I turned his like collarbone story into my story, and I turned it into about me. And now I've done that to you too.
Instead of one of those old like, oh yeah, there's this really annoying older guy that just happens to be about the same size as me, and then he just shows up and snaps my collarbone.
Yeah, I was about the same size as him. Yeah, he was like he was a big middle schooler. Let me just put it that way. And I was a small adult, so still am. But anyways, okay, so you hurt yourself and you stopped playing soccer.
Yeah, I moved on to other things like football and hockey and stuff like that. And there wasn't a whole lot of hockey where we were, so didn't work out. Nobody really played. Football just took a lot of time. I valued my time after a while, and I was more interested in girls. So I decided to stop wasting my time on football and start chasing girls instead of guys and a football.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
Yeah. So,
That math checks out.
yeah, right. So it was a shift of priorities at that time in my life.
Good.
gotcha.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you're in the military at this point. Even though, was there like any like sense of like, was that decision more, oh man, I need to make a living, or was it I want to serve my country, or was it a mix of both?
It was kind of a mix of both. My grandfather served in World War II. Like he was on the submarines in the Pacific Theater. Still have his Navy uniform in our closet back at the house,
that's cool.
including like the end of World War II newspaper clippings and everything else like that. We got a whole little memorabilia thing going over at the house for it. But he served, and my dad always said, like, you always treat your kids different. Like every kid needs a different hand to bring them up, to make them the person that they're supposed to be. And he found, and this is like all retrospect after the fact, I was the only kid in our family that my dad ever forced to say, yes, sir.
Really? Why do you think that was?
Because I needed structure. I was a rebellious little shit.
Yeah.
So
Has that changed?
no, not really. I get myself in so much trouble, or just right on the verge of it, and then nothing happens. We're like, whew, that was close.
Yeah.
All right, let's go do it again.
So how did he treat your brothers and sisters?
Well, my brother was a major introvert. He's way smarter than I am. Dude makes video games for a living now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like the latest Modern Warfares and all that sort of stuff. He helps the design. He works, shoot, what does he work for?
Activision.
Something Moon company. I don't remember the full name, but he works
Jamie, I mean Nick, pull it up.
He's on it.
Yeah.
He'll find it sooner or later. But he works for them, and he's done really well for himself. But he's always been the introvert that, like, I just want to stay here and play my video games type person. He's the one that got me into video games, which honestly probably kept me out of more trouble than I would have naturally gotten into on my own. But yeah, so he never really had a whole lot of problems with my brother. My sister could literally just look at my parents and ask for something, and she would get it. She was the baby. She was the little princess. She was the only girl in our family. So I was always the middle one that would disappear. I was hardly ever home as a kid, and I would always be running throughout the city and town and everything else like that, and finding myself in some scuffle where the cop lights are in the town coming, and I'm hopping fences in order to not get caught. You know, so
Any stories that ring a bell in regards to that kind of stuff?
I remember, I think it was middle school. Rollerblading was a huge thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But how old are you?
I'm 34.
Okay.
I had to do the math real fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. But rollerblading was huge back then, right?
Yep.
And
If you had skates, you were lame.
yeah,
If you had blades, you were legit.
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you had like the little grinding pads in the middle.
Yep.
Yeah. So we had those. We thought we were cool shit. And we were right next door, kind of catty corner to the elementary school in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So we would break into the elementary school and go rollerblading and skate on the roof.
That sounds like fun. How did you break in?
We climbed the fences,
Okay.
and used the foliage trees to get in and on the building. And it was like an open campus setup, so it didn't really have walls covering everything else. They had like concrete pathways in between all the buildings that were covered. But we would get in and we would skate on the roof, like me and some of our neighbor friends and stuff like that. And they would call the cops on us. And I remember like, ah, shit, skating as fast as I could to see like a cedar tree that was on the side just for like decoration, and jumping off the roof to grab that tree and just so it would bend over and just run off away. It's like, ha ha!
Yeah.
But you're running.
You're running with blades.
with
Because
blades on.
I'm on grass
Wheels.
at that point,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah. So I'm like running with skates on through the field at the school to get to the other side to hop a fence to go skate again down the street, you know, and doing stupid stuff like that. There was also like we used to play a game called Fugitive.
Oh, yes.
I don't know what this
Oh,
is.
yeah, you do. Because
So
you're from
fun.
Oregon, too.
Yeah.
I bet you played it back there.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that game was blast.
So much fun.
So for the Fugitive, you have drivers, runners, and fugitives.
Okay.
It's such a fun game. Probably not as appropriate when you're in your 30s, but
We should
oh, man,
I'm
it's
down for
just
playing it.
so
It sounds
good.
like
so you
so much
have
fun.
like left and right lateral limits. You have a zone that you are playing in, and however many people you have, you may have 5 people looking for the fugitive, and it's best played at night, mind
Yes,
you.
100% middle of the night
Okay.
through a city. And we had a big enough city that we actually had a north side and a south side to the city. So the goal, and we would play it between our rival high schools on the north side and the south side. So we'd be doing it at the same time. And we'd be like, all right, we're starting at the south side. The goal for the fugitive is to get to the north side high school without getting caught. And the drivers drive.
Yeah.
The runners jump out of the car and they chase and try to tag you.
Oh, that sounds like so much fun.
Yep.
Yeah.
We should do that with dirt bikes and ATVs out here.
Okay.
Twist my arm.
Yeah. Sounds so fun.
Hey, Mitch,
Sounds like another broken bone.
is that High Moon Studios?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's who he works for. At
Nice.
least last I checked with him.
Cool.
He's changed jobs a couple of times, but yeah, High Moon.
That's pretty hot. Yeah, so we would, I grew up in a really small town, and we would do this thing that we called the box game. And basically, we would just go to like the local Dollar General at like midnight when no one was there, steal all their boxes. We didn't steal. Anybody could come and take like their extra boxes that were just out in the back.
Right.
And we would line them up across like the main street road or like the main drag and light them on fire.
Sounds like a fun game.
And like, and if
How's
we were,
that different than, what is it? Pyro? What's the clinical term for like...
Pyromaniac?
Yeah, there it is.
Oh, absolutely, dude.
How is
like,
this a
how's that
game?
not
Wait, are we missing
pyromania?
something? Is there more to the story?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
Okay, sorry. I thought that was
that
it.
was the game.
No, well, no. The game was to honestly, there wasn't really a point to the game outside of just this is what we're going to do, and if we do it, we win. But we would light them on fire, and then we would wait for a vehicle, and if we were lucky, a vehicle would come along through our small town before they went out, before the flames went out, and we just watch them. We'd watch them get out of their cars and get all mad and like try and kick them off the road or whatever, and that was it. That was it. Like we just thought it was funny to mess with people. One time, a semi-truck driver came through in the middle of the night, and he got out, was absolutely livid, left, like, stayed parked, called the cops. We were all, like, laying down flat in this yard that kind of, like, overlooked it, or we're, like, kind of, like, in the bushes, thinking that he just hopped back in his car, keep on going like everybody else, no big deal, but no, he stayed there. So when the cop lights started showing up, we were like, crap, we got to get out of here. All my buddies were wearing black hoodies. I had a white T-shirt on. And so we just running away. We ran out of the bushes, tried to cross this big, huge yard that kind of scaled up. So if you're standing on the road and you look this way, you can see up the broad side of the hill, right? So there's no hiding. There's no hiding. All of my buddies got into the tree line before I did, and the cops showed up, and I was just like, I'm out in the open. I'm screwed. I'm just going to try and hide. And I just jumped, like Superman jumped, just face down and just tried to lay as flat as I could in the grass, thinking that the grass particle, or like the blades of grass would be higher than I was. It was freshly mowed. I was not. And so I'm just laying flat in this yard, scaled up. So all a cop would have to do is like look over and see just the
See a dude wearing a white hoodie, just starfish on a hillside in a perfectly manicured lawn.
Yes. And,
Well, I wonder who that is.
and meanwhile, there's burning boxes across the road. Like, of course, well, for whatever reason, I could like feel the cops' eyes on me. I could feel them. And like the voices were getting closer, and the truck driver was still cussing up a storm, and they left. I don't know if the cop saw me. It was just like, I'm gonna let that dude go or what.
Saw you, man.
But yeah, that's what we would
saw
do.
you.
So, but fugitive
sounds like a fun game.
Yeah, dude, there was nothing to do in that town. But anyways, kept me out. I didn't get into too much more trouble than that. Okay, so wow. So Fugitive.
Great
we need
game.
to play this.
Yes,
Love
yes,
it.
we do.
Yeah. All right. So you keep on taking us back to the future or back to the past.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
With me with all my stories.
It's hilarious. We're like switching roles. I'm always like, tell me about your darkest memory as a child. And Josh is always like, okay, let's talk about like, tell me about this battle, Estel.
Drew's like, I broke someone's collarbone and then lit boxes on fire.
You forgot the child part.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I broke
exactly.
a child's
collarbone.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's an important detail.
Yeah.
Okay,
and Woody, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry. I still feel bad about that to this day. Anyways, go on.
Dude, I don't know where we go from here. Okay, so you joined the military.
Yep.
You're in the Air Force. How long did you have that job?
5 years.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So I did 2 years in Japan. Was there for the tsunami, earthquake combo. I actually almost blew up.
Pause. Tell the story.
Okay.
I
So
want to hear about this.
in the Air Force, when you're doing some exercises, it's kind of like a rehearsal or a dress rehearsal for if things were going to go wrong. And we were doing one of those, and we call it an elephant walk. It's where we gin up all the aircraft and like load up munitions on it and pull the pins, and they parade around and then come back, put the pins back in. So we were getting ready for it, just fully loaded up one of the F-16s with bombs, missiles, and everything. Just pulled all the safety pins as if it was at end of runway. And then we get hit by a 9-point something earthquake, and the wingtip literally comes down and is 2 inches off the floor with an AIM 120 on it right next to me. I'm like, I'm in danger. Like, literally said that at that moment because I just pulled all the safety pins on all these like 1,000-pound missiles and 2,000 to 5,000-pound bombs that were on there.
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact ones that were on it, minus the 120. But I remember like watching go all the way down and then all the way back up and just going, oh no, this is bad. I should not be here. And then I also realized there is no way I can run fast enough or get into a vehicle and drive away fast enough that if this was to hit the ground and explode, that I would stay alive.
You're just gone.
I would, yep, that would be it. That would be the end of the story. So,
Jeez.
yeah, was there for that. And then got to help with all the cleanup and everything else like that, and everything that entailed. And
How was that experience?
And this was before SERE.
oh yeah,
So like you
Yeah,
go
yeah.
into SERE with that experience.
Yep.
Like, yeah, what was that like?
It was interesting, man. Like, it's odd walking around like Aftermath and seeing refrigerators like 20 feet up in a tree. Just the force of the water and what it can do. Like seeing some of the videos, because we were still inland far enough that our military base up there was actually one of the relief points and staging points for the recovery efforts. So we took all the evacuations out of Hokkaido from the nuclear power plant area, and all the university students, all of them were coming to us. We were also the staging point for all the international partners that came in to help clean up and do all that sort of stuff. So we ended up becoming like one of the hubs for all of the recovery efforts within the region. Lots of people, lots of suffering, but there was a lot of the guys that would get together and be like, you know what? Nobody's fridges work, even the grocery stores, because the power's out for like 3 days. All this meat's going to go bad. So what are we going to do? We're going to throw the biggest block party you have ever seen in a 9-story tower of a bunch of lower enlisted, all with grills on our balconies.
Sounds like fun.
It
Yeah.
was a great time. Like
Yeah.
there was definitely some fun that was had,
Sure.
even amidst the disaster and
Yeah.
all the suffering that was taking place.
How do you SERE your way out of a tsunami?
Get high. Like, that's the biggest thing.
You're talking about elevation.
Get up there. Yeah. So honestly, like one of the biggest things that we were seeing in some of the cities was the waterfronts for the tsunami that's hits with such force that it will take an entire skyscraper and just move it because it's pushing against a flat surface.
It just moves its base and everything.
The whole thing just gets clean swept right off the foundation.
And then
Just
it starts
shove.
to tip. And
Yeah, and then it starts wobbling and falls over and just turns into rubble and debris. But one of the few structures inside of an urban environment that actually withstood it was parking garages.
Because they're open.
Correct. And the water is able to flow around the support structures.
Gotcha.
And because the water's flowing around, it creates its own current, so all the other debris follows the current around.
Huh.
Interesting.
So if you live on a coast, maybe try and keep in mind where the nearest parking garage
Structure is. And like some of the videos that we were seeing post like everything that was going on, you could definitely see like people were taking advantage of that. They're trying to get to the highest elevation possible as soon as possible, but the water would come so high up that the top floor of the parking garage was at water level.
Wow.
just taking
Unbelievable.
cars out of it and everything else like that as they were moving on through.
Were you there long enough to see the restoration? Like, did they try and implement those type those like, you know, those structural principles of things like parking garages into the things that they rebuilt? Because I mean, it's just a matter of time before it happens again.
You know, I wasn't able to be there for the reconstruction.
Gotcha.
The majority of the damage that was taking place was actually pretty far south of where our physical location was. So I never got to see like how they rebuilt all of that. I got to deal with some of the cleanup, but I wasn't there long enough to see to completion what they had rebuilt.
Gotcha. So you come out of that.
Yep.
How long were you there?
2 years.
You come out of that, and what happens?
So in the middle of that, I got married.
Oh, okay.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
So,
How did you get married? Did she wash up to you?
No, I actually met my wife in a technical school. So my wife was a munitions technician in the Air Force.
Okay.
So her job was to build the bombs and missiles and then deliver them to us to put on the aircraft. So we met in a tech school. Started hanging out, started dating. And then after that, we were like long distance relationship for about a year while I was over in Japan. And she was part of the National Guard back here in the States. And then it just happened on one of the calls. And was like, are we just going to get married yet or what? Just threw it out there like that. And she was like, yeah, why not?
Nice.
It just makes sense. I was like, whew, that worked. I was not expecting that response. I was not ready.
Yeah.
When are we doing this? So we got married after dating each other for a year. So I came back in 2011. We got married. And then she got deployed to Afghanistan. And we spent our first year of marriage still with a relationship that was online while she was deployed. And I spent my last year in Japan.
That's got to be brutal.
Oh, yeah, dude. Time zone relationships and everything is a pain in the butt. But
And you'd only known each other for a year prior.
Yeah.
So it's not like you even knew each other that well.
no, but we got to know each other really well. That was like the number one piece of advice for a new person looking to get married: premarital counseling.
Really?
Oh, yeah. You learn so much about yourself and about your soon-to-be spouse that it gets rid of about 80% of the problems that we would have experienced otherwise.
So you guys took premarital counseling?
Absolutely.
And don't do it for the week before you get married.
Yeah, that's
Because
usually
my wife and I did the same, and it was about a year of premarital counseling. Granted, we had been together for 6 or 7 years. We had dated since we were 13.
Right.
So we knew each other fairly well growing up.
You thought.
We agreed, yes. But then we change a lot, of course. And a week of like, well, let's plan a wedding together. And while we're doing it, we'll just like let the pastor know what we're going to say about our vows. No, it's not the same as actually spending time for weeks and months. Yeah.
It's a commitment, but it really forces you to dig into like your flaws, your character, what you value, and how that relates to your spouse or soon to be spouse and what they value. And it allows you to communicate that, and it irons out a lot of problems before they even happen.
Nick, did you take premarital counseling?
No, I didn't. And we also didn't even go on a honeymoon either. So
Really?
yeah,
I kind of figured that.
just
'Cause I'm teasing.
use the money for other stuff.
Yeah.
Instead.
Yeah. We didn't take any. We didn't get any premarital counseling. Probably been better off if we had.
Yeah.
So
It helps. It
did
really
you?
does.
So did your dad do this with being the pastor?
He did actually.
Really?
But it wasn't
Okay.
my idea. It was my fiance at the time's idea. She was like, well, why don't we just talk with your dad about it? Like, your dad seems really legit and he's fun to talk to. Why doesn't he just do it? I was like, all right, sure.
Was
So we
that-
did.
Was that hard at all for you, being that your dad was digging into some of the, like, he's like, Mitch, I know you, and we're going to talk about some of your flaws, as opposed to like pulling them out of you with questions?
My dad is a remarkable professional. He can determine the difference of personality that he has to portray for what needs to be done. And he's able to separate, I'm pastor dad right now versus your dad.
Wow.
And
That's
he was really, really good at doing that,
That
which
seems
I
like
appreciate.
it seems like a skill that a lot of men can use, whether they're a pastor or not, simply being able to have multiple personalities that are all used to benefit not just yourself, but other people that you're working with, and being able to say, hey, there's an emergency going on. I need to turn this switch on, or there's an emergency going on and I have to turn that one off. Or actually everything's okay right now. There's no war. I need to be able to turn that off. War, whether it is a literal war or not. Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those traits that I've always admired about my dad, and I try to emulate as much as I can. Definitely not as good as he is with it. Of course, he has way more experience, right? So it's...
I mean, he had to raise a horrible son.
I know.
You know, like... I'm teasing you.
My poor brother.
Yeah. Got him.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a trait that can be learned.
Yeah.
It can be.
So where in there, after getting married, still spending time in Japan, where did you go to SERE after that? Did you go to SERE? Did you become a SERE?
Did you feel after that?
So while I was over there, to become a SERE specialist or to go into any of the other specialty career fields, whether there was a pararescueman, a combat controller, TAC P, what do they call them now? Special reconnaissance guys. They were combat weather back when I was in.
They were combat what?
Weather.
Combat weather?
Oh, yeah. That was a career field.
What
They
is
changed
that?
the name. So
Is that like chemtrails and like...
you're meteorologists
Yeah.
for combat troops.
Oh, that's actually kind of important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like you're a fully blown certified meteorologist that goes with all these other teams, and you go, it's gonna rain. Dumbing it down, but like they had all the tools and they could predict the weather and tell you what's going to happen before it happens.
Or change the weather.
Allegedly.
Yeah. Dude, you know they were just like sneaking a pocket version of the Farmer's Almanac and just being like, yeah,
Dude,
it's
that
gonna
would
rain.
be brilliant. I would not fault them for that.
I wouldn't
be
either.
Genius. Freaking
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah, that's an amazing tool that a lot of people don't know about.
Yep.
It's the Farmer's Almanac.
More accurate than the news.
Yep,
It's true.
exactly. Sorry, I interrupted that.
It's all good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was spending the time to retrain, and the Air Force had a policy that you could only retrain at your halfway mark in your contract. So I had to be in for about 3 years before I would be allowed to even put it in a packet to retrain to be a SERE specialist. So during that time, I spent the first 2 years just training, trying to get in with some of the other SERE guys, because most Air Force bases have two. That's it.
Really? Just two?
Just two. It's a
Do you have
two-man
a
shop.
support team with you?
They are the support team.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah.
that's a lot of responsibility.
It is like, and it's an all enlisted field. Like there's no officers inside of the SERE career field. And they report usually directly to the commander of the base.
Wow.
So it could be like E3, E4, and their boss is a full bird colonel.
Wow.
So you're cutting out all of the middlemen that a lot of other people have.
They would, yeah.
My
and it would be
goodness.
like a full bird colonel coming to an E3 and going, all right, you're the expert on this. What do we do? He was like,
And you don't have anyone else to lean on for the most. I mean, it's
no,
not like
I
you
mean,
have a team.
we
of-
have a brotherhood and a network that's built up, so we could always lean back to our brothers in the career field and be like, hey, I know you guys did this a lot more than I did. Can you fill me in as to what I'm supposed to do here or say so I don't sound like a total dumbass?
Yeah.
And that happens a lot because nobody wants to have their backside shown to their leadership when they're like, I'm supposed to know all the answers. And they know none of it.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's such a broad, I mean, surviving in any area in the world, like it could be different from one place to another. I mean, there's no way that one person could have experienced all of those things everywhere. And do you know of one?
There's a lot of different specialties in the field, but every SERE guy is required to experience every biome and show that they're proficient and able to survive in it.
So you've done this in every biome.
I've gone to temperate, I've gone to tropic, I've gone to desert, both high desert and dune desert. I've gone to the Arctic. I've done all.
Okay.
Open ocean, coastal, urbans.
So it's not like
we
they're
need to get
giving
into
like
this.
just desert warfare or just
No.
jungle warfare, and then it's like your other buddy over there is really good at Arctic warfare.
No, we have to go to all of it first before we can even teach.
Oh, okay, that was gonna be my question. So, like, what's the difference? Like, if someone goes to a SERE school to acquire the skills versus going to be able to teach it all,
Right.
two different sets of requirements.
Absolutely. And there's different levels too. Like, say like one person has this much exposure. You only need to provide them that much instruction. But say this other person is going to have this much exposure. Well, they need to learn a lot more. So that's how it's kind of tailored to individuals that are coming through. It was like, oh, I just need this professionally. As opposed to, I need this career-wise. Like, this is my profession. So for that, you have to go through the minimums first. Like, this is what everybody gets. And then our pipeline was a full year of training that was broken up in like, oh, you're going to be gone for 3 weeks. You'll be back for a week on base of study and like practice teaching, and then connect with your family, spouses, whatever it is for that week. And then you're gone for another 3 weeks. And it's just continuously.
Wait, so they slam all of those biomes into 1 year?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
So a typical school, like how long would, whether it's RIP or RASP now for Rangers, whatever it is, like how long is that school? It's.
I have no idea.
I think it's measured in like months.
I was never in the armies.
Okay,
so,
fair
Can
enough.
ask Kevin.
We could ask Kevin. Yeah.
or Jamie.
Yeah, or Jamie.
Or Jamie.
8 weeks.
8
8
weeks.
weeks.
There's that.
Okay. And obviously that's not, like, okay, you're a Ranger now. There's plenty more to it. And
Right.
if you go through buds, like there's still SQT afterward and
Yep.
all that other stuff. But, okay, so what if you get 9 months in and they're like, yeah, man, you really are not getting this high desert thing. Or do they just drop you?
Yeah.
Do people get cut a lot?
Oh, yeah. It was like, I can't remember the actual statistics, but it was one of the highest fail rate classes in the military,
Wow.
especially for our training pipeline, because it didn't matter if you were good and like taking care of yourself. It didn't matter if you were good at taking care of everybody else. It didn't matter like how well you did all this stuff. What it really came down to at the end is, can you retain that information and then embody it onto others
Oh, so you
that
have
they
the-
can retain it.
They're testing not only, oh my gosh, so they're testing not only can you live and be a good teammate, how well can you then relay that information to someone else?
Yep.
You have to be
and
a
they
good
have
teacher.
to be able to retain and use that information. So we had to become actual like certified expert instructors as well. So there was lots of lessons that we had on like adult learning theory and programs and how the adult mind actually remembers things better, how to educate people, how to structure a lesson plan so that the correct portions of information are actually retained, and how to recall it when stress is applied. So there was a lot of stuff that went into just like the human psyche and making sure that our students were actually going to be able to remember this information that they saw in a 9-week environment years down the road.
God,
You should teach me a class on that, on how to remember things, because I'm terrible at it.
Take notes.
Oh, dang it. I should have thought of that.
it.
That's all there is?
It's like I could write it down.
I thought there was some magic here.
There is some like stress is actually a huge way of embodying and like retaining information.
Yeah.
And the proper amounts of stress actually embed it into your memory better. So when
makes
you
sense.
take people out of their comfort zone and you force them to be uncomfortable, those situations and the lessons that they learn while they are uncomfortable actually stays inside of their mind for a longer period of time. And when they become uncomfortable again in that same way, those memories come back, almost like how smell is a trigger for certain memories. It's the same kind of stress. So we did a lot of stress-inducing environments that would force people to remember things, and then it would just come flooding back inside of their synapses.
Okay, so I know we have to be, and to the listener, to the viewers, sorry, but I know we have to be a little cautious about some of the things that we talk about in terms of SERE, just because it's like, it's kind of,
protected information.
yes, exactly. Can you talk about any of those experiences
Yeah.
that you set up that would bring people full circle?
Yeah. So like everybody talks about the survival and the evasion stuff, like how not dying like wherever you are.
Oh yeah, before you carry on, because not everyone knows, SERE is an acronym. Can
Yes.
you please explain?
Sorry, guys.
Absolutely. It's okay. So SERE stands for survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. It used to be that the SERE specialist career field was actually SERE instructor because their sole purpose was just to be a teacher. And then it later on morphed into a specialist where they wanted us to be more than just a teacher, but actual subject matter expert that can assist during personnel recovery efforts. So we're supposed to be the advocate for an isolated individual on the ground, regardless of the situation that's going on, so that we can talk to potential recovery assets and go, look, this is what this guy is doing. This is what they're trained at. And this is probably what they're going to be doing and where they're probably going. You'll probably find them here doing this.
Wow.
Because we taught them. You know,
Right.
we taught them how
You're
to do
their
it, and we
coach.
know how we taught them. So it's like coming to the person that taught them how to do all the stuff to go and find them.
Wow.
That makes sense. Okay, but going back to Drew's
Yeah.
note, I did a spin-off of the acronym thing. I'm curious, can you go back to the whole, an example of something that you did that maybe would encourage someone in a, life-altering scenario?
Yeah.
How would you induce that in
So
training?
part of it is getting over food aversions. So most people don't know where their food comes from. They go to the grocery store, they buy a packet of chicken, and they just go, "Oh yeah, I'm just cooking. We'll eat it." You know. Part of what we teach them is here's how you find the little bunny foo-foo that's running through the forest. And then you're gonna bop him on its head. You're gonna rip its skin off. You're gonna gut him, and then we're gonna cook him. And that's a traumatic experience for a lot of people because they've never seen anything die before. And we can always tell which one has never seen anything die. Like you can just see it on them. The second that you pull the rabbit out and go like, okay, guys, it's food time. They act differently. We can all tell them a mile away. They're like, here's a club. Grab it by the back of the legs, hit it in the back of the head as hard as you can. You're going to try to internally decapitate it. And this is dinner tonight. And they'll have to go through the process of like, I don't know you have to. If you want to eat, this is what you're doing. And it's not just if you want to eat, it's if you want all of your teammates here to eat tonight too. So they have to go through that process. They have to get that past themselves and go, it's not because of me. It's not because of my own comforts. This has to be done. Protein is important here.
And it sounds simple to us because we've
Yeah.
grown up in the woods,
Yeah. You're just
hunting,
used to
killing things, like whatever. It sounds like no big deal to us, but to most people,
Yeah.
that's not
We
been
had
their life
students that
experience.
had never seen a tree outside of concrete before. And we're taking them into the middle of nowhere in whatever weather is being thrown at us in northeastern Washington mountains. And they're like, okay, you guys are all miserable. You're all uncomfortable, not having a good time. This is the most quiet that you've ever experienced in your life, and now you're going to have to kill for the first time. And even the guys that think like, oh, yeah, I've killed things my entire life. I've done this all the time. Then we introduce them into things that are more adverse. Like in severe dehydration situations, you need electrolytes in your body, right? Who takes a salt packet with them in order to get salt back in their system? Do you just walk around with that?
No.
No. But what you can do is you can suck the eyeball out of the rabbit's skull and eat it.
I didn't know that. Listen, we're catching a rabbit this weekend, and I'm doing it. I'm going to intentionally dehydrate myself between now and then.
You have to get through the second pop when
Yeah.
you're chewing the eyeball. There's 2 pops.
Now, I've eaten a cow's eye, but it was like, after the fact. And,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. No, you can kill it right then. Just
Okay.
suck it right out of the head.
How is the second pop different from the first pop?
Oh, you got to experience to know, man. Yeah. So there's that one. And I mean, rabbits only got 2 eyeballs. So what do you do with the other students that are there? Well, rabbits don't digest all of the vegetation that they eat all at the same time. So we cut open the stomach and they get a ranger dip.
A ranger dip.
Like Copenhagen?
Because it's only
Okay.
partially digested
Yeah.
greens and vegetation
So
for
it
the
feels
area.
like,
So
what does it taste like?
depending on what the rabbit eats, it can actually have a quite lemony flavor to it.
Okay.
Is that some of the like stomach, bowel,
Yep,
and
some of the
whatever
stomach
else?
acids will have some acidic properties to it, and it's also mixing with the different vegetation that it's been chewing on, things like that. But
And this is just basic SERE stuff you're putting
Yeah.
people through.
Yeah.
These are the basics.
those are the basics.
Food.
Gotcha.
Food.
Just eating around
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
That's not even getting to like, oh yeah, eating raw mussels and like beetles and killing snakes, skinning them, making your own jerky and all that sort of stuff. Like how to do goats, big game, deer, cow, all that stuff.
Wow. So what were some other like things that people were typically averse to? What about pressure, like interrogation and things like that?
So that's
You
less
just wanna talk about it so
survival.
bad.
I want to talk about torture. I'm just going to say it.
We're skipping over evasion, resistance.
Okay, all right. We'll go back to the R. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. So the resistance portion of it, a lot of people don't like. Most people don't. And it's what is over portrayed, I think, a lot in media and TV and movies and all that sort of stuff. When they say SERE school, that's what everybody thinks of. You know?
Yeah.
It's a thing, and we have to do it. It's one of the requirements, and we learned that through lessons learned in our past as a country, through both Vietnam, Hanoi Hilton, all that sort of stuff. When you have the majority of, or a good chunk of the population that gets held as a POW camp end up turning and creating propaganda for the enemy, something is wrong. They were not properly prepared. They were not ready for the fight that came to them. So we had to start preparing our soldiers for the fight that was going to be coming to them. And a lot of that is forcing people to be uncomfortable, putting them in positions, locations, situations, and other environments where they don't like it at all. It is uncomfortable. It is painful. It is discomforting. And I can't go into exactly how all of that is done because part of it is the mystery of not knowing what's going to happen. Which is one of the biggest fears that most people have, is the fear of the unknown. You know, so we expose them to that over and over and over again. And then we try to show them how they may be manipulated and attempted at being exploited. And show them how to, well, you know, are that.
Yeah. How to like guard their mind.
Nice.
Right?
The last time we hung out with each other, I was like, do you think that you can manipulate me?
I
and
did.
you were like, I absolutely could.
I already did.
Do you think you
man.
can again? Let's do it right now.
Oh, man. You are so worried about your daughter. One, just
Sure,
seeing
that's
you
not-
early-
that's not a surprise.
No. Specifically, one of your daughters.
Okay. All right.
Because you don't know what they're going to be doing, and you don't know if you've been a good enough father figure to them in order to have prepared them for their personality and the society that's coming.
I'm afraid one of them, she could either be Luke Skywalker or Anakin Skywalker.
And you don't know which side you've pushed her.
And both of them are awesome characters. Anakin could have went one of two ways. Okay. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
all right. So you would use that against me.
I could.
Yeah.
Depends on how far we want to push and what I wanted to accomplish. But like,
You can make me
it's
start
one
to
of those things.
self-doubt
Yeah.
and like,
That's the start, you know.
Gotcha.
And it's funny, like knowing some of those things and then seeing other things, like I don't know, commercials or ads or whatever start popping up, and you're like, hey, this looks familiar. Neat.
Interesting.
okay. So what did students tend to have the most trouble with? The survive, evade, resist, or what's the last one?
Escape.
Yeah.
I would say the biggest thing throughout all of it was the psychological stuff.
Okay.
And we've seen it not just inside of our students, but like just in history. Because a big portion of it is obviously we can't know and experience and study everything as one person enough to have a complete 100% grasp of everything, right? We get snippets and we have to do case studies. We have to read about guys that have gone through and done that. I can't say, oh yeah, I've been a POW this many times in these different countries and I know all the things. You can't, right? But what we can do is we can study historical events where people we're having to deal with extreme situations and learn from the progress and the mistakes that were made along the way. And the number one thing that we saw that makes the difference between somebody that survives and somebody that doesn't is their will. If somebody has a will to live and will to survive, they can overcome every single fault of training, fault of preparation, and fault of design or planning, and still make it through to the other end, defying all physics and manner of like even principles. They can still survive. Whereas if they have lost the will to live, they just give up, that person will have every single perfect scenario set up for them right within their grasp, and they will just die. Just because they give up. They didn't want to work for it.
So how do you instill, can you instill that?
So throughout SERE, the biggest document that we had for the training was the Code of Conduct. It's a public document, so there's nothing really that I can deal. It's also known as Code of Conduct training, if anybody's curious, right? And the last portion of the Code of Conduct states that I will keep faith in my God and the United States of America. And the whole point of that is they have to have something to grab onto, to put their hope and their faith and their will behind in order to make it through anything that's coming towards them.
Something bigger than themselves.
They have to believe in something bigger than themselves. If they lose that, they give up.
What for you inside of SERE and all of the training, whether it comes to, in your mind, the location or parts of the resistance training or any of that, what for you was the biggest hurdle?
Still being a dad. So we were gone a lot for work, a lot for training, and my son was really, really young at the time. And I remember coming home from training, and I would go to try to like greet my son and like give him a big old hug, and he didn't recognize who I was anymore. And it changed a lot of things for me at that point, because I realized that my main job now wasn't to be an instructor for the military. It wasn't to be this superhuman person. It was to be a dad to my kid. And that put a lot of things into motion that ended up getting me out of the military as well. I had to make that choice. It shifted for me because I saw where my career would have potentially taken me, and I didn't like the kind of person that I'd have to be to do that. So that was the hardest thing, is knowing this is the season that I'm in, and I need to excel at what I'm doing, even at the cost of potentially affecting my kid's life. I have to do this for a time to fulfill the obligations that I've already set forward and committed to, so that I can be a dad for them all the time. I can make it to all the basketball games. I can make it to basketball practice. I can do those things for them, you know? So that was the hardest thing for me, was understanding that and trying to make that right within myself, knowing like, okay, I have to be this person. I have to do this stuff for this time, but it's only temporary.
So you kind of had some of your own, for lack of a better term, will to live.
Yeah.
And survive and get through that season of life that you had committed to.
Yeah. Yep. It was a big thing. That one day when he didn't recognize me when I came home was definitely the turning point for me. Again, you don't see that as you're going through. You're just like, well, that sucked. And you just go about the rest of your day and slowly notice, like, again, retrospective, hindsight is always better. Started making little changes, being more intentional with the time that I'm spending with him, trying to invest more time with my family, trying to be there, and not just be there, but actually be present with them. And I still suck at that. Like, I really do. I'm a workaholic by nature. Like, I thrive when I can actually do something. And sometimes it's really painful just to be there if I'm not doing something. but that's what they needed from me. My kids, my family, they need me just to be there and be available, regardless if I'm doing anything or not. And sometimes I despise it, but that's what they need.
It's really hard to stop and play.
Yeah, dude.
The hardest thing to do.
The amount of times that my son has barged into my office right now, especially if I'm on like the computer doing like in what I deem important work. And he was like, Dad, can you play Nerf with me? I was like, dude, I would love to play Nerf with you right now because I'm going to shoot you in the face. But I got to finish up this spreadsheet. I have to finish up this video. I have to finish up this photo. I need to update the webpage. I need to do these things. No, I don't. There's tomorrow. He has school. I can do that later. But the amount of times I tell him, no, I need to do these things. That's me choosing my work over my kids. Not the right choice. That's still something that I'm struggling with, like on a regular basis too. My wife will just literally come into my office and shut off the computer while I'm working and be like, you need to be a dad. Get out of your office and go play with your freaking kids. I was like, yes, ma'am.
I
You're right.
Yeah, dude, it's so hard whenever like I'll be up in the office and I'll hear my oldest. I'll hear the door kind of creak from downstairs. Da-da. And then she'll turn on the daddy. I'm like, oh, come play with us. And it's like, you know, it's strange because the hardest thing to do is to just play.
Yeah.
The hardest thing to do is just to be a kid again.
Yeah.
And in theory, it should be one of the most relaxing, peaceful things that we do.
It should be the most natural thing to do.
Exactly.
But when we grow up, we forget how to have fun doing stupid shit.
And how valuable it can be.
Yeah,
Got to go back to Neverland.
exactly. Play, Peter.
Yeah. There you are, Peter.
Exactly. But it's so hard to get back to that point after we've been so indoctrinated in society now. You know, they tell you this is what you're supposed to be. This is how you're supposed to act. This is how you're supposed to behave. It's like, you see your kids doing that ever? How much joy do they have?
I think there's also a big push to turn kids into adults as fast as we can get them to be.
Oh, I'm guilty for that too. It was
Yeah.
like looking at my son's things that he's doing. I'm like, grow up. I was like, oh, did I really just say that to him?
Yeah.
It's rough. Like, you want them to have a childhood. My wife's been amazing. She's kept me in check for years now with my kids. She'd be like, he's 5 right now. He doesn't need to be a 20-something-year-old student of yours learning to go survive and God knows where. He needs to play. He needs to do stupid things. He needs to make stupid mistakes so he can learn from those stupid mistakes. And you just need to be there and watch him do it.
Yeah, it's a balance, man. Like, how do you? I know we've talked about this on a podcast before. Like, how do you? I think it's a very common thing, probably for every man throughout history, which is how do I go 100% at making sure that my family's taken care of, and also go 100% at being present and available. And to me, like,
Mathematically,
I think
that's impossible.
Exactly.
You can't.
So what I've been trying to do more over the past couple of years is when I'm working, I want them to understand what and why I'm working.
Right.
Because there is value in a child, your son, your daughter, whoever it is. In my case, my 3 girls, there's value in them seeing, it does no good for them to just know that dad's gone in the middle of the day or dad's working late one night with night vision stuff or whatever it is. It does them no good to just know that I'm not there. They need to know that I'm not there because I'm doing this, and because I do this, they get to do that, and mom gets to do this, and we as a family get to do this. And being very intentional about like modeling that and making sure that like even whenever I'm not present, they know why I'm not present. But you know, I fail at it all the time, reminding them like, hey, here's what I'm doing today, and here's why I'm doing it. Because you know, next month we have these bills we need to pay, and if I don't pay it, you're not gonna have lights in your room.
Yeah.
Like some
yeah.
simple things like that. Not like
No, it's true. Like I remember it was either a year ago or a couple of years ago. I was taking my son to a basketball practice, and I had a time crunch. Like I needed to make this email out by this time. Otherwise, we were not going to get money. And it was like, okay, well, we're not eating then. So I remember telling him at basketball practice, because he would always be like, Dad, can I just stay for like 5 minutes after practice to play and just play basketball with my friends a little bit longer, just a little bit. And that one day, I was very specific and intentional with him. And on the drive out there, I was like, all right, son, I already know what you're going to ask. Here's why I'm already going to tell you that it's a no. I need you to understand why it's a no. It's not because I'm being greedy. It's not because I'm being mean. It's not because I don't want you to have fun. I want you to have food. And we need to make it back in time to get food on the table for you. That's how this is going to have to go. He's like, really? He was like, well, how important is this one? I told him, like, I just laid out, here's the numbers for it, son. He was like, you got it. We're gone. Like the second the practice was over, he grabbed his stuff. He went and put his street shoes on, and he grabbed his bag, and we left. And he was like, let's get back. You got things to do, Dad. I get it.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like you don't have to, like, coddle your kids about those situations. Sometimes just explaining it to them, especially when they're in that double-digit range, do they understand?
Well, and that also helps your kids feel like they're a part of the team, a part of the family, as opposed to just like, well, your parents say so, and that's why you have to do it.
They have a role to play.
You're bringing them into the family to say, I will share with you some of our goals, and this is something that the family needs to get done. And son, I need your help with this, as opposed to the answer is no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we actually just had to do that exact thing. So my brother-in-law pretty recently had a stroke. It's a pretty bad one. He's still going through the recovery and rehab and stuff like that. We're hoping that he might be released from the therapy center either Friday or next Friday is what it's looking at. But it's taken a lot out of my wife because it's her older brother. And she's having to deal a lot with driving her mom back and forth to the facilities and everything else like that to help take care of him, take care of all of his finances and everything else like that. So my wife hasn't been home a lot in the last couple of weeks. And my wife likes to have a clean house. My kids do not. So, like, one of the biggest things is I knew my wife was going to be coming home late. I knew she was going to be stressed out. She hadn't eaten all day. She'd been running like a chicken with her head cut off. She hadn't had time to do the laundry. She hadn't had time to sweep or mop the floors, put the laundry away for the kids, make beds, like all that sort of stuff. And I knew that my son and I were going to get home in time that we could knock some of that out. So before we get there, I just laid out for him. I was like, look, love your mom? Yeah. And we got work to do when we get home. We're going to take some of this off of mom's plate because we love her. And we want her to know that we love her and that we're going to take care of things while she's dealing with the stuff that she needs to. And he gave like I just want to play Fortnite. And I was like, that's cool. But we're also going to teach you not to be a selfish prick.
what's a prick?
Yeah, right. So it's one of those things like yes, they have to learn consequences for their actions. They have to understand when they make the wrong choice. And if they do certain things a certain way, nobody wants to deal with them. And we've had to do that a couple of times with them. It's like, all right, bud, you have a choice to make right now. And the way you choose is directly going to impact how, like, the next couple of weeks are going to play out for you. And he made the wrong decision. He chose poorly. Yeah, you got it.
I got it too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but you didn't laugh as hard, Josh. So, but like he chose the wrong thing, right? So the next like 2 weeks, I was super strict, super harsh. I didn't help him with a single thing. He had to do all the dishes for the house for every single person, clean the table for everybody. He didn't get to touch any of his video games or anything else like that. Like, it was a rough week for him. And I remember him going back to my wife, and he was like, Mom, is Dad going to be like this forever now? And she just looked at me and looked at him and goes, I don't know. what decisions are you going to make later?
Oh, solid.
Man.
Got him.
And he just started wising up real quick.
Yeah.
You know, and he's like, okay, I get it. There's consequences. I'm sorry. I chose to be selfish instead of helping people. And he was like, okay, I get it.
So my oldest, I'm trying to teach her, she's 4. I'm trying to teach her about consequences and how they can be good or bad. If you do the right thing, consequences are usually good. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're hard. But you want to know what has helped me teach her about consequences more than anything?
Just letting her do stuff?
Well, that and our youngest. So she's a little over 1 at this point, and she just like started walking this past week. And the youngest walks up to our oldest, and our oldest is very wild. So we have 3. Oldest is wild. The middle one, she's like almost 3, and she's very just like calm, sweet, very affectionate. They all have a little bit of that in them, but she's just much more calm. And then the youngest, I mean, she doesn't really have a huge personality yet, but she's a little wild. Like you can already tell she's going to be the baby. So the oldest, she can be very violent. I mean, people that don't have kids don't realize how violent children are.
Oh, yeah.
Just naturally. And she's very violent. And so she'll pull people's hair, she'll bite them, she'll do stuff like that. And because we're the adults, it's not like we pull her hair back. It's not like we can bite her back. It's not like we can like show her physical consequences.
That's abuse.
Yes, exactly. Like we wouldn't do that, right? I wouldn't bite her back or anything like that. And the middle one is too nice to do it back. This youngest one, she has no idea. She doesn't know it's right or wrong. She just is going to do it back, or she's going to do it on her own. So the youngest has been crawling up and walking up to the oldest and just reaches up out of nowhere and just grabs a handful of hair and just yanks it down, or just walks up to her leg, bites into it. And now we're able to say, hey, you see how that feels? Now you understand what your sisters feel when you do this. Just it's been great. They're teaching each other.
Isn't that awesome?
In a way that I can't teach them.
Right.
I mean, you could, generally frowned upon.
Exactly. Exactly. But yeah.
So what's interesting is while you were going through becoming a dad and filling that role, you were also going through, as mentioned, not just the physical aspect of SERE, but going through classes and having an understanding of not just teaching people, but how people receive information. That also probably had an impact on yourself, because when you learn something about other people, you can also learn something about yourself too. So combining family life and the joys and struggles of that with going through SERE instruction as well, how has that affected not just family life, but day-to-day living, being out of the military? And I'm still curious about a lot of other SERE stuff. Maybe we can get back to that in a little bit. But how has that information and that training and all of the knowledge transfer affected today?
So, I mean, it's kind of cliche because everybody uses it, but you're always a student. There's always something to be learned. You can be considered a subject matter expert on something. Guess what? There's more ways of doing it that you've never even seen before. So I've killed a lot of animals. I've had to do a lot of different things for our training, but I've never had to keep them for an extended period of time. So like my wife, when we got out, she was like, I want to have chickens. I was like, okay, are you going to kill them or am I killing them? She was like, no, we're not going to kill them. It's for eggs. I was like, oh. This is not how I imagined this going. So I'm having to learn how to raise chickens, how to deal with the temperament of them, not just, slaughtering them and butchering them and all that sort of stuff. It's like, oh, no, you've named all of them.
It's going to be harder to eat them.
Yeah, we've already eaten 3.
The roosters or?
We've done 1 rooster and 2 chickens.
Okay.
But yeah, mostly natural causes for them, at least 2 of them. And then the kids got their first lesson on how to deal with anatomy, as we were dissecting it. And they're like, what's that? That's an unformed egg coming out of the chicken. It's like, oh, What is that? Those are the intestines. These are the lungs. This is the heart. These are the kidneys. Yada, yada, yada. This is meat. Congratulations. You know, so, but like getting away from just, oh yeah, you just kill things in order to provide for yourself. You just take things, and actually getting into, you can actually cultivate and grow things and nurture them as opposed to just destroy what's around you. That's something that I've had to learn a lot because I hadn't done that before. And now, like this year, we had like a 40-foot by 40-foot garden that we were like tilling up and cultivating. And I've drawn a lot from experts in our area and that have become good friends on how to do it properly and everything, because I was not ready for how fast and different things were down in the South compared to where we were before.
Right.
You know, like the vegetation is insane down here.
Yeah. Even the earth is different in Oregon than it is, you know, in the South.
Absolutely.
It's wild.
It really is. And it's changed how I've had to do a lot of things. And I've thought like, oh yeah, I was a SERE specialist for so many years. I know about all the biomes. It was like, yeah, but you're not familiar and an expert in this specific environment. You know, the concepts and theories about how not to be dead. But there's a difference between being dead and thriving. And actually maintaining or taking dominion of this environment and making something for yourself out of it.
Right.
So so that's interesting, because I guess where would you say SERE draws the line in terms of long-term sustainment, or does it draw the line at this is just what you need to not die?
I would say the general SERE school points towards maintaining a life, limb, ISET for recovery.
Okay.
And that changes depending on the environment that you're in. So, for instance, in Desert Storm and everything else like that, we were able to pick up people within like 3 hours. They didn't have to survive for very long. They had to evade, they had to run away, and they had to be able to signal for recovery. Other conflicts, say like Vietnam, weeks. But it wouldn't just be like, hunker down here, stay alive, and we'll come and get you, because they couldn't. It would be stay alive and move so that you can get to a place that you could be recovered. There's very few instances where it's like, we need you to hunker down for months and months and months and months and make yourself comfortable. It doesn't happen very often, especially for like military conflicts, right? It's not going to be a thing, because either they're going to get captured and taken in as a POW, or they'll get recovered. It's one of the two. Somebody's going to find them eventually in a war zone. Very few cases that have they not. I think there was a case in Japan where a guy from World War II was like maintaining his uniform, sharpening his samurai sword and everything else like that throughout the entirety of his unit being disbanded. And the war had ended already, and there were American troops stationed in Japan, and he was still conducting guerrilla warfare. I forget the guy's name.
Yeah,
but
I recall that story.
It's insane. Like, some people have, and they've done very, very well at their job and their profession doing that. But it's not part of the doctrine. You know, it's not part of the concept that's taught a lot. Now, there are guys that I know that have been SERE specialists for decades, like spent their entire 20-year career in the military as a SERE guy, got out and then became a contractor and still teach and is part of the SERE school beyond as a civilian. And like some of them, I only eat the vegetables that I grow in my backyard. I only eat the meat that I kill out of the mountains. I only drink the milk that I take from my goats. That's it. The only phone that I have is the one that the government has given me to get a hold of me.
Jeez.
And they're like completely off the grid type people. And like, my house is heated by all the wood that I chop. That's it. I cook with that same heat. Like, that's how they live their lives still today.
Wow.
I was like, that's impressive, but that sounds like a lot of work that I don't know if I want to do right now.
I think there's a part of, I'm not going to say every man, but most men that hear that and go,
That sounds
if
great.
only. Yeah.
Until you've tried to do that much
Yeah.
work.
It's-
And you still have bills to pay.
Yeah. It's romanticized for sure.
It really is.
Like, I mean, self-sustainment is noble. Like, it's a good thing, and it's something that everyone should strive for. But it's highly glamorized. Like,
It is.
It's not just something you flip a switch.
And I think it's something that people think that you can do on your own. It is not being self-sufficient. It is building a community of people that are able to work together to achieve that. It's not just a one-man show operation that can do it on their own. It's never been that way. Like before the nuclear family was done in the U.S., it was communities that would come together. And even with some of the farmers, like what we've been seeing in our little town and everything else like that, talking with like my gardening expert buddy Trey, he would say like, hey, your soil's only good for so many years growing this crop because it's going to suck all the nutrients out. But once you've done that, it's putting these nutrients back into the soil, which is prepping it for the following year to plant this crop. And you can cycle it. Now, that means that you're going to have an overabundance of one thing. And you're not going to want to eat that all the time. So you have to build friends in a community in order to share the load. You'll be growing this while they're growing that. You'll share and trade and build an environment of trust amongst each other. And then you can go, hey, what are you building next year? What are you growing next season? Like, we want to be a part of that so that you can help each other. I think that's a lot of things that people don't realize, that you're never truly self-sufficient. Nobody can do any of this stuff by themselves.
Yeah. Even the mountain men traded with Indians.
Yeah, all the time. Because guess what? Sometimes all the stuff that you have to deal with on your own as your resources is really boring. So you have to find somebody to trade with.
Yeah. Even I'll say the name. Hopefully, it won't get us banned. But of all the people that wanted to be left alone and just do their own thing and survive on their own, ultimately had to go into town to do certain things, and that was Ted Kaczynski. You know, like no matter how, you can't sit here and tell me anybody else's name that didn't want to be left alone more than that guy, and even he needed something.
Nobody can make it alone.
Yep.
So speaking of mountain men trading, did you in any of your training encounter other people that were proficient in the mountains that were evading others? Were there ever times where you were like, is that guy really living on his own? Is he actually making it? No one else knows about him?
So we've come across like a whole bunch of abandoned homesteads before, and we're like, oh, this is somebody's house, and it's overgrown and everything else like that. But it never got to the point of us like stumbling on some like nomad that's living in the woods. Never dealing with that. But
How about Bigfoot? He's up in Washington, you know.
No, man, he's down in Florida too.
it's all over the place, man. It's more than one.
Yep. There have to be. There has to be more than one.
No, there is.
Yeah.
It's on official government documents, man.
Really?
Are you serious?
100%. Yeah.
Last time you were over, you talked a little bit about
brought
Bigfoot.
one of the maps with me, but so
Wait. It's on official.
This is legit.
Please explain.
I'll send you a photo of it when I get back to the house.
Okay.
Okay. So,
We'll throw it up on the screen for all you guys.
yeah, when people are dealing with evasion, we give them a special chart for it, right? It's a map, helps them find their way around, do all this sort of stuff. It also tells them good plants, good animals, bad animals, all that sort of stuff. On the one that we have for the training area, there's obviously things in the Pacific Northwest that are dangerous animals, like mountain lions, bears, moose, and then there's Bigfoot. He's right there on the list, drawn in plain color and everything.
Is that a
labeled.
joke?
Tell me, man. It's official government document. Bigfoot's on it as a dangerous animal inside of the northeastern Washington area.
It's time to go hunting, boys.
Yeah.
Let's go. What was the most difficult biome for you to operate in?
Oh, man. I hate open ocean.
Oh my gosh, that
The
sounds.
open ocean makes cowards of everybody.
I didn't even think
wouldn't-
about that
yeah,
being
same,
a
I
biome.
thought you were going to be like either extreme hot or extreme cold.
I mean, extreme hot, it sucks because you can only take so many clothes off. But if you like manage when you're working in the cool of the day and try to sleep in the hot, it's actually not that bad. Extreme cold, you just put more clothes on, get yourself out of the wind, find ways of staying warm. Also not that bad. Open ocean, there's nothing you can do.
Explain. Can you briefly go over what that training was like?
So the most terrifying part of it, we'll go back into like how that day started, right? So we got a hold of the Coast Guard. We go out on one of their skipper vessels, and we go out just beyond visual range of the coast. Then they blow up a 20-man life raft, and we all get in it. And then they drive off, and then they come back, and they start doing circles to create waves. And you're in this one life raft with 20 other guys who some have never experienced open ocean before. And you get tasks from your cadre who have all taken anti-motion sickness pills, by the way, beforehand. And they're like, all right, you're going to get the shelter up over the life raft. You're going to do this. You need to start pumping this reverse osmosis pump to get clean water out of the ocean so that other people can drink, and like tasking people to do everything. You guys are going to try to get the radio up. You're trying to do this. You're going to do that. And it's just like dominoes. People just boop, boop. You just see them start like leaning over the side of the life raft and just puking their guts out. Damn. Time and time again. And it's only a matter of time. Everybody ends up getting to a point without medication of vomiting their brains out into the open ocean. That's how the day started.
So you're dehydrated right off the bat.
Oh, yeah. And we didn't have any water. And we already vomited, so we're like, cool. So anything that was in my stomach is now chum in the water. That's good because fish. And then they kick us out of the life rafts so that we're just floating in there with individual life preservers, or the LPUs. So we're floating out there with our LPUs on, and they do it in increments where we can't see any of the other students that are going through the training course with us. So I don't see anybody. All I see is water. Nothing else. No other sounds, no nothing, and it's all salt water. Don't even have a life raft to myself. I'm literally just in life preservers, just floating around in the middle of the ocean. I'm like, this is how people die.
Yeah.
Like this could easily be the death of me. Like there's nothing I can do. There's physically nothing to do except for try to keep my ears open, and hopefully something comes to find me that doesn't want to eat me, and I signal for them to get me the hell out of here. And eventually, like, you have your survival vest on, like the pilots would have, inside of the fighter aircraft and everything, and pull out the signal mirrors and start seeing some, like, blip in the distance in the sky, and you start trying to collect the sun and shine it at them to get their attention and hold it there so it's steady, so it doesn't mimic what the water's doing anyways, creating reflection. So you want a constant signal to them. And finally get one of the Coast Guard rescue helicopters out to us. And they drop a basket out, swim in, get in. Their flight engineer hoists it up. They come up, and we're just sitting out there, and he grabs an Oreo and just shoves it in my mouth and then pushes me back in the water.
Oh my gosh. But
No.
thanks, but
Yeah, and then they just dump us back in. And eventually they come back and scoop us back up in the big boat and take us back to the coast. But like that was the most terrifying thing. I hate the open ocean.
It also sounds just hopeless. Like, what can you do?
It truly was the closest that I've ever felt to being hopeless. Like there's not much you can do. Now there are guys that were shipwrecked and survived in the open ocean for like years.
Tell me about 'em.
Years. Poonlin, I believe is the guy's name. You can double check me on that. You can pull up a photo of him. That dude is shredded. Like, I'm jealous of his body. That's awesome.
Nice.
But that dude, he built the life rafts from the shipwreck and debris that he found in trash. He would swim laps around his life raft in order to gain exercise. He roped himself off to it so he wouldn't lose it in storms. Built a sleeping section on it using trash and everything else that he found as debris. He would spear fish in the open ocean and eat it raw as sushi, because you can. And he would collect rainwater and dew to drink.
Oh my gosh.
Is spearfishing in the open ocean? It sounds difficult because it's not
wouldn't
like there's a
imagine it being
bottom.
easy.
Yeah, that sounds.
Yeah, so like the dude he's incredible. His story and how he survived and did all that is just phenomenal. In fact, I think it's overused, but it's a damn good story. And all you see guys keep using it. It's great. Keep Putin alive.
So how long was he out there?
I don't remember off the top of my head. To be
A
honest,
long time.
it's been a long time
since
I had to talk and refresh on his story. But
What'd you say his name was?
Poon Lin.
Punlin?
That's what I'm going to guess.
Cool. So, yeah, open ocean biome. Didn't even think about that being a biome.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
One thing that you had said earlier is about the will to live and how that's kind of like a trump card. When you think about like the state of the world today, it's very easy for us to all be very, very cynical about it. And I don't even know if cynicism is the right word. I think I wouldn't consider myself a cynic. I would consider myself a realist. And I look at the trajectory of our nation, the trajectory of where things are going, and that mixed with my beliefs. I think some very, very hard times are ahead. But I see a lot of people commenting or making posts, and whether they're just exaggerating or not, I feel like there's a lot of people just throwing up their hands and just being like, nope, all is lost. We're screwed. Like, no point in trying anymore. What do you think the value is? Where's the line there between having the will to go on and believing that there's something better around the corner and being realistic with like the situation that we're in?
Faith. I fully believe faith is the line on that one. Like, Revelations tells us that it's going to get really, really bad. All the world is going to speak of rumors of wars and calamities, and it's just the beginning. It's not the end of the world. It's only going to get worse before the end actually comes. So I think, like, at least for me, my foundation in faith in Christ and all that is truly where I try to put my hope and pray that Jesus comes as soon as he possibly can. But he still has to meet all the other requirements, and all the things that have been prophesied still need to take place. And knowing that as a realist, shit's going to get real bad. It's going to get real bad, like worse than most people think is ever caught, like possibly could.
Yeah.
But understanding that and not emphasizing the hardship of it, but understanding that we already know it's going to happen. Is it supposed to give us a foot up and advantage to it? No, it's supposed to give us hope that God already sees all the troubles that's going to be taking place beforehand and that he's already going to win. So why do I need to worry?
Yep. There's a lot of people that are accelerationists.
Yeah.
That, say, okay, well, I know it's coming. Let's just let the whole thing. Yeah, let's push this thing along. And my thought is, well, first of all, it has to be stated that America is not the kingdom of heaven.
Nope.
And if I'm a citizen under Christ, that's my identity before America. That being said, I am not under the impression that if America burns tomorrow, a week after, something better is going to rise out of the ashes. That's my opinion. In my opinion, it took 50 years to destroy this country, or at least get it to where it is now. It's probably going to take 50 years to repair it at minimum. Where do you land on is America too far gone? Are the people of this nation and the political leaders and so on and so forth, yeah, it's not going to get better. It has to get worse first.
Do we want to see the country as an organization or as a people?
Let's talk about it in both ways.
Yeah.
Right? So as an organization, organizations fail. That's what they do. They are doomed to expire. We've seen it for every single civilization side of history, right? Every civilization fails. The organization does. The people are never out of society or out of reach of redemption. That's where I think like the difference is. The organization of the U.S. will eventually one day fail. The people of America are not so far gone that they cannot be redeemed.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, it is.
That's a phenomenal way to put it.
I mean, if you think of it even like biblically, people, there's nobody that's too far gone to be redeemed by grace.
There are still Romans. Like there are still these great empires who have fallen. The people remain, even though the empire is gone.
There are still people from a lineage of Nineveh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are still Persians. Like,
But they're not the ones that you think of when you hear of the stories.
Right.
The people have been redeemed.
speaking of, do we want one last story?
From you?
No, from Mitch.
A last story?
Yeah.
I want a story.
So
Story
speaking
time?
of accelerationists,
Okay.
the last time Mitch was over at my house, he brought up a very, well, it's not controversial. It was intriguing idea about Judas.
Iscariot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So tell us, because you talk about accelerationists, and everyone uses the term, "Oh, he's a Judas," as like the betrayer.
It's a bad
term.
thing.
Sure.
right?
And it's like
it's a
It's a negative connotation.
yeah, absolutely right.
Yeah.
So his name has become synonymous with doing bad things or being a traitor.
Yeah.
Right. Do you? Because Josh, you and I have had conversations before. I know that you believe in all that. So do you believe?
this story hits different because he looks so much like Jesus.
You're not wrong. Yeah. Also, there's a
I
nice.
get accused of it so many times at church, and like get stopped by people that go to our church because I play bass up there, and they'll be like, "My son came up to me today and goes like, Mom, I think Jesus is up there slapping the bass," and it cracks
Slapping
me up
the
every
bass,
time.
man.
It's great. Anyway, so as a believer, what is the requirements to salvation?
Oh gosh, what was Jesus's response? Believe in the crucifixion and that. Oh man, I wish I could say it verbatim.
You don't have to say it verbatim. Just say it in your own words. You don't have to make
Simply believe that Christ died for your sins.
Okay, so they have to be redeemed through the blood of Christ,
Correct,
right? And
yes.
even with the thief on the cross next to him, that's all that it took, right?
Right.
Believe, follow, repent. Done. Do you believe Judas had a moment where he reached salvation?
Oh man. You have to remind me if this is do I remember this correctly? That after he was given, was it 30 shekels of silver for betraying Jesus, that
Well, for turning him in to the Jewish authorities at
sure,
the time. Yeah.
right. Did he go home and get rid of that silver?
He gave it back to them.
Okay, then yes. I believe that he reached a redemptive state.
Okay.
I don't know how to answer that.
No, that's fine.
That's fine. You don't need to be able to answer it.
Sure.
It's a thought experiment, right? Because none of us were physically there.
Well, to
Right.
answer your question, I believe he had every opportunity and that God would absolutely have honored if he believed in Christ and repented, that would have sufficed.
Do you think, so this is my question. If he didn't feel bad about it, if he didn't feel guilty about it, if he didn't come to the realization that what he did was wrong, would he have killed himself? We don't know.
Sure, I'm thinking.
We're just guessing.
That's one of the hard things in order to truly understand, right? So like the intent behind somebody's actions is always harder to do. You can always justify and rationalize why you do things, but you can never judge somebody else's intent.
And that's how our conversation got started.
It's true.
Judging intent of other people.
So with him potentially realizing what he did was bad, trying to undo what he did, seeing that all hope was lost because Jesus was just taken out by these people and was taken off to be crucified, and then kills himself. And we also hear later on inside of the scriptures that that land was cursed for all time and blah, blah, blah. You know, a whole lot of other stuff in there. But he was also a student of Jewish prophecy as well.
Mm-hmm.
But he was also responsible for the finances of the disciples for continuing Jesus's movement throughout Judea and trying to bring the good news and the gospel to everybody, right? So what if he sees Jesus was already at this point in time told them that I'm going to have to die. Okay, well, he says that, but he's also supposed to be the Messiah. The Messiah is supposed to be the one that comes through and overthrows the current order of things and brings salvation and liberation for all of the people. That's what he's supposed to be. He can't die. He can't be killed. Cool. We need money.
And he's been seeing miracles
And
this
I've
whole
seen
time
him
too.
bring people back from the dead. I've seen him heal lepers. I've seen him cure sicknesses, all this other sort of stuff, miraculous things, true miracles, right? This is God incarnate. Is it going to hurt if I turn him over to the authorities? What are they going to do to him? He's God. I can pull a fast one over these Romans and the Jews, make cash, fund the gospel further, and prove to the world that he is the Messiah because they can't kill him.
Accelerationism.
If that's the case, why did he kill himself? Because there had to have been some
He never
guilt.
witnessed the resurrection.
He didn't hang on long enough.
Right. Does that affect his belief? And if that's the question, how deeply did he actually believe? And if that's the question, then you have to go back to, did he believe before? That's an interesting,
right?
Yeah, it's an interesting.
Get your wheels turning.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
That's Mitch. Well, we've spanned the gamut of topics. That's for sure. We've given everyone a little bit of something, and the best part about it is this is just a podcast.
Oh yeah,
of-
we have a full weekend of content
Yep.
to capture.
Good stuff. Potential hypothermia, potential loss of limb.
It'll be fine.
Yeah,
Dibs on
tourniquets.
hypothermia.
Yeah. Well, thank you, man. Appreciate your friendship. Appreciate all the knowledge you're willing to share with all of us, and for taking time out of your day to hang out with us.
Thanks for having me out.
Yeah, absolutely. Josh, you got anything?
No, not for me.
All right.
Nick?
No, nothing. Thanks
Okay.
for coming into town.
Yeah.
Always a good time seeing you.
Always is.